if you just focus on good enough, you might find that what you have is actually enough. Hello and welcome to my TED Talk. Hey, what's up? This is the Rad Bike Adventure and I am Ryan, and I thought I would do something a little different today. We are on the channel about to hit 10,000 subscribers, which is so crazy to me. It's kind of unbelievable. It feels like not that long ago, although sometimes it does feel long ago, that we were celebrating our 247 subscribers, I think it was, when we were in China. Man, that's crazy. It's really cool to have everyone coming along for the journey. We have made quite a few videos since then, so really, really cool to see the channel grow, and we will be doing a live stream next week. I'm gonna make an announcement about that sometime soon. We'll put it on our community page and on our Facebook page, Instagram, we'll put it everywhere, and do a little hangout celebration, ask us anything. So if you do have any questions that you'd like to ask us, if you can message us in Facebook or Instagram, that would be great, and we can add that to the list of questions. I will make a more official announcement, so look forward to that. But yeah, today you may have noticed the title of this video, maybe it piqued your interest, and I just thought I would do kind of like a hangout and just a chat, kind of not a rant, I guess, maybe a little bit of a rant. So I hope everyone's got their beverage. Got my tea here, my cool Ninja Turtle. Oops, let's take this out. This thing's pretty cool. You just steep the tea in there. I like this one. I found it recently. It has a little tray too that you get to set it in, so you can continue using the tea, get multiple tea uses. Okay, let me do this. Where is everybody watching from? What are you drinking? Let me know in the comments down below. This is a mug from when I was a child, and it is still near and dear to my heart. That is delicious. That is good tea. Loose leaf, man. Loose leaf tea, that's the way to go. I don't drink a lot of tea, but when I do, I make it loose leaf. Most of the time. So yeah, talking about the perfect bike. Does the perfect bike exist? I have been thinking a lot about this notion of trying to find the perfect bike, and what I have realized, this is my main thesis, is that it does not exist. You should stop looking. You might be thinking, no, Ryan, I'm gonna find it, that perfect bike for me. It exists, it's out there. I'm gonna do all my research. I'm gonna do everything I have to find it. I will test ride hundreds of bikes before I settle and decide on which one to buy and to keep with me forever. Which is another thing that we should talk about is, while bikes last forever, let's be honest, a lot of times we don't keep them forever. I do wish we could hang on to bikes a little longer than we typically do. But yeah, this search for the perfect something is really a quest that I think a lot of us try to pursue, and maybe we do know in the back of our heads that it won't ever be perfect, but we want to get really, really close to that. And I think that that's problematic. And even with anything, right? Like the perfect down jacket or the perfect tent or sleeping bag, the perfect cooking set. We really do these crazy, crazy deep dives, especially now that you can have so much information and research access with the internet and forums and Facebook groups. And man, you can just throw questions in there all day long or read multiple blog posts about things and just completely overload yourself with information. And what that tends to do is just give us this overwhelmingly paralyzing amount of choice. And I say paralyzing because in the end, you end up not doing anything or not buying anything, or you do buy something, but then let me know if this has happened to you. You buy the thing, and then when you get it, you're excited, but there's this part of you that thinks maybe you made the wrong decision and you should have gone with choice B, C, D, Z, whatever, how many ever choices you had. There's this kind of lingering doubt in your head that you didn't get the right thing. And I've been reading a book actually about this myriad of choices that we're presented with, and that how it's actually kind of limiting us in our life in a way, actually kind of detrimental to us, because there is so much access to information that when we have those thoughts of maybe this isn't the right thing, or I should have gotten that other one, or this one isn't as good as I thought it would be, it makes us feel bad inside because there's so much choice and so much information. I like that I have a little tail behind me, that you end up blaming yourself, because how else could there be a reason for you getting the wrong thing? You had all this information, you had all this research that you've done, that it must have something to do with you. And so this is, again, kind of coming back to this like perfect bike idea, that you're never going to be quite satisfied with whatever you get. And that the real key to happiness, here it is, people, here it is, if you've been curious, you just have to think good enough. It's good enough. Whatever it is, it's good enough. Just have really low expectations and then you won't be disappointed. And I think some of us maybe have heard this theory, but you have to remind yourself, but it really is true. There's a few examples that I'd like to share. Hopefully I'm not boring you to tears yet. But here's a couple stories from my very first cycle tour. So my very first tour that I went on, I had done a little bit of volunteering prior to that in a bicycle co-op, which I highly recommend. If you have a bicycle co-op near you, you should reach out, find them. It's a really, really cool way to meet people and learn how to work on your bike and just kind of be involved with the community. So highly recommend that. So I had a little bit of mechanical experience, but besides that, I really did not know much about bike touring. I had seen some folks doing it near me. I thought that looked really, really cool. I knew that touring bikes were a thing, but I also knew that I wasn't going to be able to afford them. So I was in the UK at the time, and I found a used bike on Gumtree, which is kind of like the Craigslist or eBay in the UK. And I bought the bike for like £50 or something. And it needed a little bit of work. I changed the brake pads out. I remember I went to the bike shop and I bought the brake pads and the guy was like, "Oh, do you want me to install them?" I was like, no, I know how to do this. I was so excited that I knew how to install brake pads. And so I was sitting outside of the shop and he's like, "This is really surreal. I'm watching someone else work on their bike at my shop." But he liked it. He liked my enthusiasm. But I rode the bike around. I think it was a little bit big for me. Sophia, are we really chewing the bone right now? Hopefully you guys can't hear the chomping in the background. I think it needed a little bit of work and I didn't really feel confident doing it. And my point is that this bike totally would have been good enough. And I kind of regret this now. It's a little bit embarrassing to admit, but I went to a bike shop because I really was worried that this bike wasn't going to be good enough. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't the exact thing. And so I went to the bike shop and I ended up buying a bike. I did buy the cheapest hybrid bike they had. They tried to talk me into getting a little bit higher end one, but I was like, no, this will be fine. So then it was like kind of coming back. Like I had this regret of, getting rid of that other bike. And I was like, oh, I really probably should have just kept that one. So I was feeling guilty. And they were trying to get me to go to the higher tier, but I was like, no, this one will be good enough. I loved that bike. I had really no expectations whatsoever for it, and it performed really well. I think especially because they were like, I don't know if this is going to be enough for you. They had plenty of gears, but it was more like not enough spokes and not as robust of a hub because it wasn't a touring bike. But on that tour, I just kind of went with a bunch of like whatever gear I could find in my cousin's garage, who I was staying with in Wales. We found these panniers buried under a bunch of other stuff, and you want this? Pew. And an old tackle fishing bag. It wasn't even a box, it was just a tackle bag, and we strapped it to the handlebars, and I got like a really cheap tent and cheap sleeping bag. I just went to the bike shop, grabbed some bike tools, and I found a route. I looked up a route and just went for it. Maybe I should just do a video of my first bike tour, the story. She's pushing the ball into my back. And everything was good enough. It was not perfect. And I didn't have to do a bunch of research. I didn't have to do a billion compare and contrast videos. I just decided this is what I have access to, so this is what I'm going to use. Not really putting a lot of pressure on myself for everything to be perfect and in line and all the gear to be like snazzy and, the newest, greatest thing. And that tour was so great. It was so great because everything was just like this wonder, and it was fresh and exciting and unexpected. And I think sometimes when we try to put everything in order and get everything to be perfect just the way we want it, or that very best sleeping bag that fits all of our needs, sometimes you kind of lose sight of what the trip is really about and the adventure of it. On my first tour, going back to my first tour, I traveled with a guy, Matthew, hi if you're watching. I absolutely adore Matthew, and he is one of these people that is just like, good enough, let's go. And I so admire that in him. And when we were pedaling, I noticed that he didn't have a front derailleur. I was like, oh, you don't have a front derailleur, but he did have a double, chain ring in the front. And he said, oh yeah, it broke, but I just use my foot now. So, what? It's like, yeah, if I'm in the top one and I need to go up a hill, I use my foot and I just nudge it over. And then once I get to the top of the hill, I can move it back over by hand or just stop and put it back on. And I thought, yes, that's awesome. Does it work? Yes. Is it perfect? Is it top of the line? No. But so what? It doesn't matter. It's still good enough. And hey, it made a memory that will last forever. And it made me think like, hey, even if you don't have a front derailleur, you can still make it work. Oh, that's the other thing I wanted to mention. Sometimes in all of this research, you're taking opinions of other people that are not you, and you are you. There's no one else like you, and you do have to take that into consideration. Even if someone says, like, this is the greatest thing ever, you can't live without it, it's incredible, I love the way it does this, it might not work for you, because you're a different person. The way you do things might not be the same as that other person. And so there is something to be said about just using what you have and being okay with that. And if someone else is like, no, you can't use that won't work. Well, if it's been working for you, like the missing front derailleur, then hey, why not? Just keep doing it. It's fine. If it works for you, it's good enough. And a lot of times too, in this pursuit of perfection, and we forget that perfect doesn't exist. It is absolutely impossible. And even when we look at someone else that's doing, that has all of the flash gear, everything's new and the top of the line, they probably have something on their bike that they want to change out or that they feel like isn't quite good enough, and they're comparing to their buddy who's got the other handlebars or the other chain ring or the other whatever, and they're thinking maybe I should do that, right? Like, we are always kind of looking for that other thing instead of just being satisfied with what we have, which can be a good thing. It can create growth. But I do think a lot of time that it stops us from doing stuff or kind of gives us excuses for not doing something. Instead of just saying like, my gear is good enough, and good enough is good enough. Like, just be happy there. Because for sure, like, even when you look at us, I think you probably think like, oh, they've got it all dialed in, like everything's perfect. But no, there's always something that I'm like, oh, does this work well? Like, maybe I should try to put my front bag on a different rack, or maybe I should get a different bag. Or a different this, or this doohingy and this thingy do. You want to try all sorts of things, which is fun. Like, if you're into it and that's what you want to do just because you like experimenting and you want to learn and grow, and that's kind of where I am right now. Because before, I really had no interest in doing a lot of research or anything like that, like a little bit, but I was more just like, just go for it and figure it out along the way. And I think that I do want to get back to that, because there's always going to be something that you can change or upgrade. And if you're doing it for learning purposes, then like, heck yeah, all the power to you. But if you're in that position where you're like, I just feel like I can't do it because it's not going to be right, or it's not going to be the right thing, just know that it's really less about the gear and everything and more about your experiences. Heck, we met a guy who had been traveling on his bike that he had bought at a swap meet for, I think, $80, he said. And he had ridden that thing all around the world. I mean, when it got to us, it was in pretty terrible condition, but he was at the very end of his trip. But it survived. And did he have to expend maybe a little bit more energy pushing because it was a heavier bike? Sometimes things that are a little rougher around the edges become a little bit more memorable. It's nice to have the comforts, to be sure. We love our bikes. And it is kind of ironic that I'm telling you to not go on the internet and do a bunch of research when our YouTube channel is all about sharing information. But I do think a little education is good, for sure. Just be careful going into those deep dives and those cross comparisons between this gear, this bike, that bike. And just know that if you get on a bike, I highly recommend test riding. And if it feels pretty good, I'm sure it is good enough. Now, a little caveat to this is I will say that if you have a bike that you know that you actually don't like, and that could be possible, maybe it's really uncomfortable and you don't like the way it rides, then I do think that that's a good reason to go look for another bike. Don't spend 30,000 hours researching. Just go to a bike shop, go to a few different shops, test ride some things, do a little bit of research, and then find one that does fit you better or feels more comfortable. Because I do know that if you're not comfortable on what you have, if you really don't like it, if it's not good enough, you're not gonna ride. And I've kind of beat myself up over this. As an example, a surfboard I had, it was okay, but I didn't really like it, and I knew that. I didn't like the way it rode, but I always felt like, well, I should just get into surfing first, and then when I surf a lot, then I'll get a better board. But I actually realized that I needed to like reverse engineer that, because I wasn't going out because I didn't enjoy that not good enough board. Like, you have to be honest with yourself. Maybe that bike is not good enough. And once I got the new board that I was like super excited about, now I'm like motivated. I want to go ride. So I know sometimes people think that the motivation has to come from you and not like the gear you're using, but there is a relationship there. So go find your bike that is good enough, and that will be your perfect, not perfect bike. And you should love it and enjoy it and go have fun on it and adventure with it, and know that no, it's never going to be perfect, but it is your good enough, not perfect, perfect bike. I think, yeah, let's go with that. And the perfect something can apply to so much. It could even apply to your route, that you want to find the perfect route to do. But in the end, just pick something and go with it. No matter what, you're going to have a great time. You're going to have a unique experience. And if you don't have an amazing experience, it'll be memorable for other reasons. And hey, it'll make you stronger. So just choose and go for it. Don't spend all this time wallowing in this indecision because you want something to be so perfect. It won't be perfect. Things will go awry. I stole that phrase from somebody. Things will go awry, and that's just all part of it. For place, I would say that you probably know deep down where you'd like to go, and you should just listen to that. If you want to go to Vietnam or Iceland or Nicaragua, wherever it is that you really want to go explore, like, make that happen. You don't have to have proof that like 20 other people have enjoyed their trips there for you to enjoy it. If it's somewhere that you have always wanted to go, no matter what, even if the cycling isn't great, you're still going to be able to satisfy that curiosity and go see that place. And more than likely, you will have some good cycling too. And all of this ranting about perfection doesn't exist and we should just settle for good enough, I think it's also good to remember in this day and age when we have access to so much information and we can browse the internet 24/7, is that you have to think about, where do you want to be spending your time? And I know for me, I personally like to be out on the trail more than I like to be in front of my computer. If I'm spending all this time doing so much research and comparing and contrasting a million different things, I'm gonna have less time in the outdoors and on the trail. A great example of having less choices and just having your life be easier is actually going into a physical store or into a bike shop and just doing your purchasing there. Trust your local bike shop or your local co-op that they have made some great decisions for you and they're gonna have really good advice. And we can sometimes forget this. And I think during COVID times, like, people are going out a little less, but it's better now, and you can still go into the bike shop, wear your mask and everything. But we went into the shop and we wanted to get a few things, and it was very simple. I just said, I'd like to get a chain ring. And Brian, the guy that works at Cycle Quest in San Diego, was like, oh yeah, I have one that'll fit on your bike. Yeah, how about this one? And he had like 2 choices, and he's like, I like this one because blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yes, perfect. I'll take it. And then a few other things too is kind of the same situation where it was like, okay, here's the one that they're recommending. I will just get that one. I'm sure it will be good enough and I'll enjoy it. And I didn't have to spend 10 hours, which I probably would have done, trying to find the perfect chain ring or the perfect whatever it is for my bike. It's funny. The things I have the least stress about purchase-wise are when I've done the least amount of thinking about a thing. If I just go for it and I get it and my gut is right, my intuition is right, saying like, yes, this is good, it's good enough, then I feel good about that. I do often, when I really think about it, if I put in a lot of thinking and effort and deciding back and forth, and then I get the thing, there is always like this shred of, not disappointment, but just like doubt. Like, did I get the right thing? Oh my gosh, maybe I made the wrong decision. Like, and I start making sure and going back to the forums like, oh, did I get the right thing? Please, someone else tell me that it's the good one. And when I've just gone with, yeah, this is good enough, this feels right, I always feel way less stressed about it. There's so much less pressure, so much less expectation, and I just feel happier and more satisfied with that thing because I wasn't like building it up to be this pinnacle of perfection. Sometimes these things that we start with, it's good enough, it will become more than you expected it to be because you started not with it being up on this pedestal, whether it be a piece of clothing or gear or your bike. And so I think that the perfect bike really is the one that you don't have a lot of expectations for, and then it exceeds those expectations and becomes something that you actually really, really fall in love with. So go out there and enjoy your good enough, not perfect bike. All right, thanks everybody for watching. Hopefully that was a different kind of vibe, just hanging out here, sipping on some tea or coffee or whatever you got going on over there. Some alcoholic beverages, maybe. I don't know what time it is there. But let me know your thoughts. I'm curious in the comments below. Have you ever been paralyzed by too many choices, or felt dissatisfied once you did all that research, got the perfect thing, and then felt like it wasn't quite good enough? Let me know in the comments down below, and definitely tell us what your good enough, not perfect bicycle is. We will be announcing our 10K live stream hangout very, very soon. Appreciate you all being here. If you're new to the channel, feel free to subscribe if you made it this far. I suppose you should. You can pop up a little thumbs up there for us. Leave a comment down below. That makes our day. The dogs are back. And we will see you in the next one. Right on.